Hi, Greg. Welcome to Funnel Vision podcast. So excited to have you on today and to share your tips and sales expertise with our audience of sales professionals.
I'm delighted to be on with you, Alana. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. I'm excited. So, jumping into first question here, what is one game-changing tactic that you rely on to build strong client relationships?
Yeah, and I'm going to answer this question maybe a little bit differently because I just feel like, if you can Google this question on the internet and get a million answers. But what I would say is that um, if you focus on transferring enthusiasm and engendering trust, and, enthusiasm, that's fairly straightforward. Believe in your product, watch your body language and everything else. Um, but it's important, right? I mean, if you're not excited about the product, your client won't be. But I think the more important part is engendering trust. And, when you're talking to someone, how do you engender trust? Well, first of all, you talk about at least, I would say at least one third at most in a conversation with a client or prospect, right? People love to tell you things about themselves. And if you really, really focus on them intently, and, show through how you're behaving, how you're listening, how you're showing interest, that you care. Um, Another way to engender trust is to just have that servant mindset where, you're really trying to find out if there's a fit and if you can help a prospect. And it helps, you've probably heard the phrase upfront contract. It helps if you just tell someone at the very beginning, this is just a conversation to find out if we can help each other. And at the end of the conversation, we're going to decide together, if there's a fit, and then really, follow that with sincerity and authenticity. And, if you focus on the other person, ask lots of questions, go in with the idea that you're not trying to sell your product to everybody. And this may very well be the case where it's either not the right product or it's not the right time. And that's okay. And as a salesperson, you're just doing the work of having meaningful conversations with a lot of people. And and people will feel it, and when people can feel that you care, that you're trying to provide them a solution that will make a difference in their career and for their company, and that if it's not the right solution, you're not trying to push it, what you'll find is they'll start reaching across the table to you. And when they know so just, it's hard when you have a quota. It's hard when you're in sales and 9 out of 10 people won't take a meeting with you. And you finally get that one meeting and it's like this precious jewel and you want to turn it into money, but you just have to be willing to let it go if it's not there. And when you do that consistently, you'll find that people really appreciate it. And what's also really interesting is that you'll find that you'll have a conversation that doesn't move forward, but that 6 months or a year or 2 years later, they'll call you back and say, you know what, I really just wasn't ready for that, but now we think we have a need that you can help us with, and we really appreciated the conversation we had, and I'd like to talk to you again. So I guess it's also somewhat about having a long-term perspective is how you build trust with people. So
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I agree with everything that you said. It is so important to come at it from a place of authenticity. Really want you can't go into it being desperate just because, oh, I've got a client call now, like, or a client meeting, like I've got to sell this. Like, no, you have to come at it from a place of authenticity and from a place of really trying to see, is this the right solution? Are is our solution going to help them? And is this client a good you know, client for our product? Are they going to work well with us? Like, are they the right client for us as well? Which is another part to it, right? Like, there's sometimes they may, not all clients or not all, are great clients and fit into what you're selling to. Usually less of the issue, but there is, there are times when that becomes the case too. So
yeah, I mean, and it's so hard when you're a salesperson because you are under pressure, and it's hard to kind of take that long-term view, and then it translates back into the truth that it's a numbers game, and you just have to have as many authentic conversations as you can.
Yeah,
But yeah, so
absolutely agree.
good question though. Thank you for teeing that up for me.
Yeah. So what is a piece of sales advice that you've received in the past that, has truly changed your approach or really stuck with you?
I'm going to give a pretty short answer to this one, but it speaks to the fact the reason why sales is hard. And the reason why sales is hard is that most people don't like rejection. And sales as a profession, you have to get through a lot of no's before you get to a yes. And someone told me, and what I came to realize, and this is just really important for salespeople to understand, is that when you're rejected, it's not about you. Don't take it personally. And that is really hard for any human being because we're all wired. I don't know why, but we all take it personally when people say no to us or tell us to get lost. It's human nature. And I don't think you should be callous to it, but just remember you're not doing a bad thing. I mean, presumably you have a good product, and if you can find the right fit for it, you have every logical reason to be calling them in a business to business environment. But for whatever reason, it's just not a fit. Maybe you need to work on your skills more, and that might be a good thing to take away from if you have a bad sales call, but don't take it personally. And that will save you a lot of angst, and it will give you the emotional energy to keep going.
Yeah. And you have to have the no's. You in sales, you're not gonna bat 1,000 and have all yeses. So, for me, it's, that what I had, heard when I was first starting out in sales is that every no gets you closer to that yes. So
That's
you
right.
have to be able to handle the no's because you are in a profession that it's it will happen and it happens often.
Yeah, no, no. Thank you for mentioning that. That's an old chestnut in sales, right? That every no is getting you closer to your yes. And so as an addition to that, what I tell some of my salespeople is, hey, your favorite word has to be next. Like, oh, okay, good, fine, next. I'm going to keep
Hmm.
and find the one who's the right one. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to keep going. Uh, so what are your thoughts on AI and how do you feel AI is, changing the game and the future of sales?
So many thoughts, Alana. Um,
Yeah, it's a big one.
many, so many AI presentations that I've sat through in the last year and a half,
Mhm.
and for good
Yeah,
reason. I mean, it's kind of look, it's here. It's going to impact everyone's workflow in every industry. Um, I think the tech industry is, I think, naturally inclined to try to automate or code everything into a machine. And you just have to remember there are certain things that can't be done by AI. Things like what I said earlier, engendering trust, creating relationships, creating human connection. That being said, there are many tools I think that AI provides today, and I can't predict what AI is going to look like in 2 years from now. So let's just talk about how can AI help you today? I think that for me, it solves the blank page problem for me, and what I mean by that is when I sit down to write a communication or a sales presentation or what have you, I tend to stare at that blank page for a while.
yeah,
And so the nice thing about Chat GTP or these other tools is that, and if you get good at writing, if you get good at prompting, and I took a course on prompting, which was really interesting, and I encourage everyone out there to learn more about prompting. But if you can go in and get Chat GTP or whatever AI tool you're using to get words on paper, maybe get a basic sort of outline on paper, um, that goes a long way. I mean, that's like 80% of writing, right? And then you can go in and flesh that out, edit it, adjust it, so that, the truth is we all sort of know what we want to say, but it's hard to get started. And so I personally have found that to be a real boon. It's great. Um,
yeah,
so just creating content, and the ability to use that tool to create content. Be careful, of course, we all know.
yeah. But what you're saying makes it is exactly how I use it every day as well, right? You have something to say, you can kind of get out your like bullet points that you want to say, and it will help you, figure out like, how to put it together. And of course, you have to have it in your own voice, but it helps kind of get that like, yeah, blank page. Okay, now I've got at least an outline of what I want to say. Now I can say it and add the things that I want. And also for, gathering data is, I know
Yeah.
that's how we use it as well for, in recruiting, we none of our interviewing or any of that is there's AI tools out there that you can use for that and bots for interviewing and things. We don't do any of that. That's a really, human relationship driven function. But, researching clients, researching competitors, like doing all that research that in the past has taken so much time and effort now is just completely automated. Just type in what you need and it helps gather that data. And that's really how we've been leveraging it too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's been helpful.
That was the next thing I was going to say is research. And it's like, AI is going to put Google out of business, right? Or the Google that we know, like you just get to it faster. It's in more depth. And then just the other thing is to be aware of the various productivity tools. I mean, I started recording all my calls and it's been a game changer. I hardly ever go look at the recordings, but just having that summary that it produces within 30 seconds after the call and then being able to send it to somebody and say, here's what we talked about, or internally,
It's
sending it to somebody and say, here are the follow-up things we agreed on, please do them. That's amazing. As a sales
yeah,
manager, also just being able to look at call summaries and sort of some of the tools that tell you, what percentage of the time was the salesperson talking on a sales
yeah,
call. And, we used to have to sit there and watch recordings of calls and, happy to do it. And it's important, but it's time consuming. And so I think everybody, there's just, gosh, it's just such a wild, I don't want to say wild west, but maybe a land rush. There's so many tools and so many things that are being developed and, it'll shake out over time, I imagine, to fewer choices. But I think it's incumbent on everybody who's working a professional career to find the tools that make sense for them, play around with them. I found a few that work for me. And I'm by no means an expert. So, and
yeah,
I heard, and lastly, I'm sorry, Alana, just one last thing.
yeah, of course.
It's, I just want to share with you a phrase that maybe you've heard before, but I was sitting in a presentation, they called it digital labor, right? It's just the things that machines can do for you that free you up to do higher value things. So,
100%. Exactly. Is doing all those things that you mentioned. But the relationships can't be done by AI, at least not yet. But hopefully never. But as of right now, we still need humans. So that's a good
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think, it's a really cool thing and we'll see how it develops.
For sure, for sure. Will be really interesting over the next few years. It was like all of a sudden it wasn't there and then it's there and it's grown and over the next few years and I'm sure, decades we'll see how that changes the landscape. Um, so what do you think is something that a salesperson should stop doing in order to become more successful?
Talking.
Yep. Talking, period, end of sentence. Stop talking so much.
Well, we just as humans, we want to fill the silence. And you have to kind of, you come into a call, be prepared, have the questions you want to cover, and then let your prospects talk. It's astonishing when you can kind of open up that oyster and get people talking what they'll tell you. And
Yeah.
once they're comfortable talking and telling you things, it's astonishing what follow-up questions you can ask that they'll tell you. And if you went to a salesperson and said, can you get this person to tell me what their annual revenue is or their monthly recurring revenue? They go, oh, no, they won't tell me that. And I say, yeah, they will. But you have to give them 10 or 15 minutes to warm up to it.
Right.
And so it's the ability to question effectively and ask questions and listen. I truly believe that the most effective salespeople are the salespeople that ask the most questions and listen. Um, because then when it comes to a proposal, you're just telling them, your prospect will tell you what to sell them and how to sell them. And salespeople, they get ahead of themselves, they get out over their skis and they talk, and they want to push product and they want to push features and benefits. And the client doesn't really actually care what you're selling. They just want to know what it's going to do for them.
Yeah, how it's going to solve their problem and listening to understand what is their problem, because not every client that comes to you for your service has the same problem and the same need. Even though you might be offering the same product, the same service, it's solving a different pain point or what for that client. And if you need to know that in order to what that problem is and how they need to solve it in order to actually sell. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
And you said something, I appreciate it because I forgot to say it, which was listening to understand, not just listening to wait for your turn to talk. And
Yeah.
and if you listen to understand, what does that create?
Trust.
Trust. Well, we started talking about it at the beginning. So
Yeah.
great question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Trust and authenticity. It's
Yeah.
it's just so important. So shifting a little bit to like sales talent and like great salespeople. As we all know, really hard to find great people. Especially hunters. Do you have any like, go-to strategies that you use for like finding and identifying really top-notch sales talent?
Yeah. Well, I think that, as sales managers, we need to realize that our job is somewhat analogous to what salespeople do. So salespeople are always prospecting for clients. As sales managers, you have to always be prospecting for talent. We need to keep our eyes open all the time. Um, that being so, it starts with that. You can't just wait until there's a need. You have to know people. You have to cultivate them. If you run into a really great seller, talk to them and say, "Hey, listen, man, you're awesome. If there's ever opportunity for us to talk about, um, you get the idea." Um, so let's see other things about top sales talent. I really believe in recruiters, Alana.
Well, good.
so,
Me too.
so don't hire don't you're not gonna don't you're just it's going to be hard to find a top salesperson without a recruiter.
Yeah.
Um, work with your recruiter, treat the recruit like a sales process. Write a really, really super detailed spec, 4 or 5 or 6 pages wouldn't be unreasonable. And work through a recruiter to as you build your spec, and then as the recruit proceeds, meet with your recruiter weekly. It's an iterative process. You're helping the recruiter zero in and hone in on really what you're looking for. Um, and then, ask questions of salespeople about tell me stories. I just want to have salespeople tell me stories.
Hmm.
What was something you were really proud of? What was a situation that you overcame and actually got the sale? Tell me about a sale that you lost that you thought you were going to get. Um, Things like that. I just want to hear passion for sales. I want to hear someone who's overcome obstacles. I absolutely want to hear stories about persistence for sure,
Yeah.
because persistence I don't know if you can train people for persistence. Either I don't know. I just want to see someone who's tenacious,
Yeah.
and wants to achieve for whatever their personal reasons are, whether it's money or glory or what have you. I don't really care. I just,
Yeah.
and, you know, that's what I'm looking for is people who it's not someone who's innately, outgoing. It's not someone who, has salesy characteristics. It's more, are they serious about succeeding and are they willing to do what it takes to succeed? Because as you and I both know, sales is hard. It's really tough and
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. So
100% agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah. So, Greg, tell us in our last couple minutes here, who are you? Where can people find you? A little bit about what you do, and so people can learn about your background and where to
sure.
contact you.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about myself a little bit. Um, so I've been in sales for my whole career. I started out working for Comcast back in the heydays of cable advertising. I was a Comcast cable advertising through that organization, which by the way is a great company. Um, I had the I was chosen to go through, really, really lucky to be chosen to go through the management training program and transition to a sales management role at Comcast. And I was there for a while. And then I had an opportunity to jump from Comcast to a small cable network in Southern California. It was called the Outdoor Channel. It still is called the Outdoor Channel.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I joined it when it was really kind of what they call a fledgling cable network. And it was interesting. It was as you may recall, in the cable industry, they had the dual revenue stream of subscriber fees and advertising, and they were doing okay on the subscriber fees and getting distribution for their content, but they just really weren't making any money on advertising. So it was really
Hmm.
interesting. And I came in and um, so that was kind of a fun job. I was there for about 10 years and built up the whole national sales organization for the Outdoor Channel. And thanks to some really great salespeople and really, I have to say, a tremendous support from management who let me do what I wanted to do. We were able to really take that network to the next level, and we gained significant market share in the advertising marketplace. And then we were able to sell it, sometime later. So that was really, really a good experience. And then from that, when that came to an end, one of my former colleagues at the Outdoor Channel became the CEO of a company, and she invited me to come be the chief revenue officer of that company. Totally different industry, great experience. I was there for about 3 years. About $100 million company. We had three divisions. I was managing a lot of people. So it was really nice career progression. I had some great companies I worked for, great people, great salespeople. But this whole story gets to where I am today, which is what I'm doing now is I'm a fractional VP of sales. And I chose to make that pivot because despite all the success and fun I had, there was an awful lot of travel and an awful lot of pressure. And I got to a point after going through my third company transaction, that, maybe I should do something different. And so I've been doing this for about 4 years. It's a different world, transitioning from sort of the corporate Fortune 500, enterprise, I should say, sort of level to small and medium-sized businesses. But it's been extremely gratifying. I really enjoy working with companies that I know I can really make a big impact. I go in and work with these business owners to see how we can build sometimes because I just want to build a sales team, or often I come in and try to help them fix the things they've been struggling with. So really enjoy it, work with 3 or 4 clients at a time, any industry pretty much, as long as it's B2B sales. And I usually work with them for about a year or so, sometimes more, sometimes less. So if you know anybody out there, and by the way, I work anywhere in the country. I have a client in Miami right now. I'm in Southern California. I've had clients in Toronto, Canada, and New Jersey, as well as California. So I guess my little plug for myself would be if you have a company that's between $5 and $50 million in revenue, and you have a B2B sales function that you want to grow or fix, I'd love to talk to you. I might be able to help you. And I'm obviously to be found on LinkedIn. And I live in Southern California, about an hour north of San Diego. And I'm really, really enjoying what I'm doing these days.
That's awesome, Greg. Well, thank you so much for being on Funnel Vision. I think your advice is just amazing and spot on. And yeah, if you're looking for any sales help or advice, please reach out to Greg. And I appreciate your time.
It's been a delight. Thank you, Alana.
Thank you.